Hi guys, how's it going? My name is Sam Benchigib and I'm the co-founder of Make a Change World, and as some of you may know, I just recently finished running across the entire American continent from New York City all the way to Los Angeles, from the Atlantic to the Pacific. I ran 3,055 miles. I was running 23 miles a day on average, and it took me 191 days to complete this expedition, and I was doing it to raise awareness about a cause that means a lot to me, which is plastic pollution. And so I thought that I would take this time in the midst of this crisis with COVID-19 to give a little debrief because I haven't done one yet, and it's now been 3 months since the end of my run, and so I've had some time to think, to reflect, and to think back at these crazy last 6 months where I spent running pretty much every day to raise awareness about this cause. So I started out on July 26th in New York City, and I finished on February 1st, but in those 6 months, a lot happened. I ran through 13 US states, 11 of which are landlocked, and so the purpose of my run was really to bring the ocean to these landlocked communities, to raise as much awareness about plastic pollution by meeting and engaging with as many people in as many communities as I could, from school students at schools, elementary schools, universities, meeting with individuals, with business owners, to meeting with politicians like small town mayors or state representatives and state governors. And so to go into a little more details about my run, I got asked a ton of questions when I was running across America, from Instagram, from Facebook, from other social media forums. So I've selected some of these questions, and I'm just going to answer them directly. The first one is, what keeps you going on this crazy run? And so to answer that question, I think that the two biggest motivators in this run for me was, one, the cause. It's really what drives Make a Change, which is the organization that I co-founded with my brother and sister. And so we've always been passionate about this cause of plastic pollution and protecting our environment. Growing up in Bali and being surrounded by water, I saw the effects of plastic pollution on a daily basis. And so I went to university here in the US, and seeing that in a university like the one I went to, which is very educated, you still see that all these people are very unaware of the plastic problem. And so I thought I needed to do something here in the US. And so my run is what I came up with, to bring the oceans to all these landlocked communities. But the cause was really the main driving force behind my run. And the second thing that really kept me going every day was that I never really thought about the end goal, and I never really thought about getting to LA. This run was a 6-month-long journey, 3,055 miles, and so if I started my run every day thinking about LA or thinking about the end goal, I think I would have never really accomplished it. So I really ran across America in 5-mile increments. And that's really how I saw it on a day-to-day basis, thinking that I would have to get to 5 miles, and then that was the goal. And then the goal by the end of the day was to get to 20 miles, and if I got there, I'd be really happy. And if I got further than that, then I would be over the moon. But that was really my driving force, was thinking about the next big city, next big milestone, the next big state line. So really thinking about these micro goals accumulating towards this bigger goal. The second question, what do you think about while you run? This is a question that I've been asked a lot of times, and I was running every day anywhere between 4 to 10 hours a day, depending on the mileage that I did that day. And I'm actually one to not listen to music while I run, so I'm just out there by myself with my thoughts. And I was definitely running for a really long period of time throughout this run, and I guess mainly thinking about the next meeting that I had, or how I could really have as much impact in the next city or in the next meeting that I was having, was really the main thing I was thinking about. And at times, because there were a lot of times where I was just in these vast areas of land where there was no one, honestly just enjoying the scenery and taking it all in, because I knew that sooner or later it would be over. And I'm now looking back at some of those moments and missing it more and more every day. Just that feeling of being out in the open with no distractions, with only one goal in mind, which is to get to 23 miles, is a pretty incredible feeling. And it was definitely just a lot of that, a lot of taking everything in and thinking about ways that I could impact the people that I met. The third question, what was your diet like? And looking back at my run, there's a few things that I think I did really well, a few things that I think I could have really done better, and one of them is my diet. So I lived in an RV, which is great. It was very comfortable. I had a kitchen, which allowed us to cook. So for the first half of the run, I was eating great meals. And one thing that I did was I actually did this entire trip zero waste, which means as little to no trash that goes to landfill during my run. So from buying everything in bulk to buying no single-use plastics at all, buying the things that I needed in glass or aluminum, because both are 100% recyclable and way more sustainable than plastic, was something that made this my diet a little more difficult, especially in areas in the US where unfortunately everything comes wrapped in plastic, which was one of the big realizations that I had, was that every single grocery store that I tried to do my grocery shopping in, most of the items that I wanted or that I needed for my diet came wrapped in plastic, which means that I would have to alter my diet as a result of the plastic packaging. And so for the first half, I managed to find some items and food products that I needed that came wrapped in aluminum or in glass or just in bulk. But during the second half, I had to winterize my RV, which meant that I didn't have any running water because of how cold the temperatures were outside. It got to negative 30 degrees Celsius, which was freezing, which meant that I couldn't use any of the kitchen, which meant that I had to completely switch my diet to ready-to-go meals, or meals that were packaged in aluminum. And so I would buy these soups and these canned foods at Walmart, and that was pretty much my entire diet for the entire second half of my run. I bought rice that came wrapped in cardboard boxes, and a canned meal, and that was lunch and dinner every single day for 3 months. And so throughout the run, I actually lost 30 pounds or 15 kilos from just the extreme physical feats, but also a lack of nutrition. And I really felt that at times when I was running, and I was at mile 22, my body was definitely asking for a lot more protein or a lot more nutrients, which I couldn't give it because I was doing it zero waste. The fourth question is, how are you being followed and who is following you? I had 4 people that rotated in and out throughout the journey. Started out with Josh, a good friend who I grew up with in Bali, who was a filmmaker. So he came on board for 2 months from New York all the way to St. Louis. And then in St. Louis, I got a friend of mine from South Carolina, Blaine, who came on board for a month. So he followed me from St. Louis all the way to Kansas City. And then in Kansas City to LA, which was the biggest stretch, for 3 months. Friend and filmmaker Martin from Paris came on board. So he's the one that stayed the longest. And the fourth one was Hunter, filmmaker from New Zealand, who came on board for 3 weeks just to film in the Rockies. But yeah, those 4 guys, they rotated throughout the run, and it was amazing to have someone there every day to support you. And other than the people that were on the ground in the RV filming and driving the RV, I also had the help of my sister Kelly in France and my brother Gary in Bali, and everyone else that followed online. It was a huge help. But those were the 4 main people. So grateful for their help throughout the run and for their support. What's been the highlight of your run? So to go into the highlight of the run, I would say that there's 2 things that really stick out to me. The first is I loved speaking to schools, and especially elementary school students. You walk in a room with hundreds of kids, sometimes 700 kids in a room, who are so fidgety, and you're up there speaking, but they're talking to each other because they don't know who you are. And after giving my speech and sharing my message, everyone in the room is quiet, and you can see a glitter in their eyes because they're interested, and they realize that they can also have an impact individually by reducing their single-use plastic consumption. Was something that was so inspiring to me, and I would always leave a school talk feeling more inspired and ready to run the next day or continue running that day. The second big highlight for me was just how big and beautiful this country is. And I ran through 13 states, and it was crazy to see how different every state is, both its topography, but also just the nature and the the surroundings was incredible, from the urban streets of New Jersey to the green hills of Pennsylvania that was so difficult to run through because it was just constant up and downs, to the plains of the Midwest and Kansas, to the Rockies of Colorado, to the deserts of New Mexico, Arizona, and California. It was so crazy to me that this country has everything. That was a huge highlight. And then that last question was, what is the biggest obstacle? And obviously running across America is a very difficult thing to do. And just the extreme pounding that this takes on your body, from running 23 miles a day for 191 days, it took so much out of me. I mean, it took 30 pounds out of me, and I'm not a big guy, so it's a lot of weight for me. But just in general, the extreme exhaustion was so difficult. But something way more difficult than the physical aspect was the mental aspect, and waking up every day in the freezing temperatures in the Rockies and telling yourself and convincing yourself that you have to run 23 miles at 10,000 feet in altitude was extremely daunting. But I pushed through it, and I now look back at it, and it's something that will stay with me for the rest of my life. The next question is, how did you prepare for something like this? And having never run a marathon before, this was an extremely daunting project that I put on myself. But the way I trained for this was by, and not really being a runner before, I just told myself that I needed to run every day for a couple months. So whether it was 3 miles, whether it was 10 miles, I pushed myself to run every single day for 3 months before this run. I also did a lot of physical therapy for 2 months to really get my joints and my feet prepared and in shape for this. I thought of this idea in January of 2019, and I started the run in July 2019. So I had a period of 5 months where I fully prepared and did everything I could and put my body in the right shape for to endure something like this. But again, there were moments where I was clearly not ready. I got to Flagstaff, Arizona, 2,500 miles into my run with 500 miles to go, and I almost tore my left Achilles tendon. So the tendon that attaches from your calf to your heel was 3 times the size of what it should be, and it was just overuse and wear and tear. So no matter how much I prepared beforehand, I still got blisters, I still got soreness and tightness, and I got injured. And so at that specific time, I bought walking sticks and pushed through the pain and just walked 23 miles a day for 2 weeks. In some of these extreme expeditions, no matter how hard you train, you're still gonna have things that are unexpected. And so unfortunately, I did get injured, but I overcame that and came out stronger on the other side, which was nice. What was your average day like? The day started early in the morning, and we cooked breakfast. And then I would go off around 7 to 8 a.m. where I would run 5 to 6 miles, take a break, do that again, and then by lunchtime I'd usually have run around 12 miles. And then from 1 to 4 was usually the time where I would spend my time working on videos or meeting and engaging with people. And then I would go off and run another 10 to 15 miles in the afternoon. And then as soon as I finished running, it was pretty quick dinner in bed, and then just do it all over again the next day. And 2 more questions. Why did you choose running? I guess for me, running was an amazing metaphor to showcase how important this plastic problem really is. And so for me, if I could tell myself that I could run across the entire North American continent, I felt like that was a message strong enough to inspire people to reduce their single-use plastic consumption. And I told people that it really begins with the first step. My first step was on July 26th, and if everybody can take that first step to reducing their single-use plastic consumption, the world would be a much better place. Running is also the most sustainable mode of transportation, and so that was a big part of the decision too. And on top of that, I also decided to do this entire run thanks to our partners Parley and Adidas on their shoes. made from upcycled plastics collected from shorelines around the world. They say that the pair of shoes is approximately 11 plastic bottles, and so that was also an amazing symbol and a great conversation starter to show that plastics, once used, can actually even be used for to create the highest performance shoes out there. And so I ran 3,055 miles on these shoes, and also just a great conversation starter when I spoke to school students, and just a great shoe overall. And so super grateful to have collaborated and worked alongside Parlay for the Oceans and Adidas Running. And so running was, I think, a great tool as well to combine all those factors, but also bring the oceans to Middle America, and combine all these communities together by running through them. And the last question is, what's next? So it's already been 3 months since I finished my run across America. And now that I've had time to think and to reflect and to look back at my run, I'm definitely really happy that it's over, but I'm super excited to continue working with Make a Change, continue working with my brother Gary and my sister Kelly on trying to build Make a Change as the go-to environmental media platform. So I applied to this contest when I was in the middle of Arizona to win a free year in New York City, paid for by these 3 social media influencers, Ryan Serhant, Seth from Dude with Sign, and Casey Neistat, thinking that hopefully I would shoot my shot and see what happens. And a couple days before finishing my run, being out in the middle of the California desert, I'm running and I'm on mile 15, and I see Dude with Sign and Ryan Serhant, who came out to surprise me to tell me that I won this free year in New York City, all expenses paid for. And so with the current situation with coronavirus, I'm in Pennsylvania, waiting for things to calm down a little bit before fully making the move to New York City, to work with them on building Make a Change as the go-to environmental platform for New York City. So really establishing our North America, New York branch. That's really the next big move, moving to New York for a year, building Make a Change, and working alongside Gary and Kelly, my brother and sister, on trying to make this world a plastic-free world, and a more sustainable place for people all around the world. So I hope that this was interesting to some of you, and if you have any more questions, feel free to ask in the comments below or on Instagram. I always would be happy to answer any questions, but I hope that this little debrief was interesting, and yeah, thanks again.